I'ma throw a two-seat. Ooh, gonna say yeah. Ooh, you so obsessive, send another desperate message. On your knees, I got you begging. I forgot I meant to mention. You ain't nothing when you tryna be sick. You ain't nothing but my honey ass bitch.
Oh, hello guys. How are you guys doing?
Hey, thank you for joining us again. This is a follow-up to our initial interview. So just to set this up for everybody, we have Chloe who's given us another hour of her time, which is rare. Folks, I want you to understand how rare this is. You have a million-plus content creator giving an hour of their time to a sub 3,000 sub content creator. So
basically, we're small fry in this big little pond here.
So, I mean, I want to give respect where respect's due. I also want to give respect because there's been no limit to the questions I've been allowed to ask on the past two. Full disclosure, I actually solicited help with the wording of the questions and actually some research of the questions with a litigator friend of mine. So, you know, I wanted to make sure that I was as accurate as I could. Luckily, the thing about me is being a martial arts instructor, I teach a lot of different folks. And so I was able to call in a favor very quickly and put this together.
Round of applause.
So just some background of why we're doing this. So the last interview was absolutely gangbusters for us. I enjoyed it. I think we had a very good conversation. I think we got to learn a lot about some of the personal side of Miss Roma here. But we're going to go into some more of the political actions now. I got a lot of heat. I took a lot of heat for the last interview. And I'm going to cut this short, but I'll just say, I got folks that said on one side saying I was far too nice to the lady. And I was borderline simping.
You're borderline
simping.
Tell me I was ugly. That's what people really wanted. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And then on the other side, what I believe our fans who are loyal to you said, these people are asking stupid questions. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with them? And so, you know, but I do think that if I handle myself with integrity and intellectual honesty, both sides can be mad at me. That's okay, but they'll say that we were professional and we did a good job. That's what I meant to. So with that being said, how are you doing today or this evening, Miss Roma?
I'm doing really good. I filmed the 3rd episode of my podcast today, the Roma Army podcast. That'll be released after this here. It was really good. I shouted out your channel and talked a little bit about how my following was like a little, I don't know, just pointlessly upset in my opinion. I mean, I felt like you guys did a great job. I thought you guys were respectful. I thought you guys picked great questions. I never felt offended. I didn't feel like you dragged it on. So anybody watching, please don't feel the need to be offended on my behalf because I thought they did a great job. Hence why I'm here for round 2. I guess people just felt like you didn't ask hard enough questions. And, you know, really what people want to know is whether or not I'm a man or not. And no, I'm just kidding. I guess that's really that people just were upset that you didn't ask me hard questions, throw a book in my face, call me ugly, all that stuff. So,
well, no, it's anybody who knows me, like I can talk a lot of crap, but when it comes down to it, when I'm going to talk to somebody, I'm going to give people respect. That respect is due.
Right.
And so I think that, like, I can disagree with 1,000 things you say, but I respect you, first of all, as a content creator. I respect that you're out here working. And I also have to say that your message is not going to be popular for your gender. Yeah. so I got to give a little respect for that. So, and plus, people who know me know that I'm generally respectful when I'm speaking as people. And I do that a lot. You know, Scott is too. Scott's a nice young man with a little fuckboy energy.
Yeah. Well, I watch your guys' content quite avidly. So, I don't think I've ever seen you be disrespectful or, I've got nothing to advise.
Probably haven't seen some of our other videos then.
Yeah. but we'll leave it there. Hey, look, I can get over the top, but I'm an older gentleman, so it doesn't look great for me acting like a young Thundercat out here. You know?
Young Thundercat. It's an old show, right? They're showing your age.
Yeah. If you're ready, we're going to go to the first question that I have.
All right.
Okay.
What's that first question, Grover?
All right.
We got loaded up here. Do you feel that women give blue globes to guys on purpose? You don't got answer. I'm just messing around.
I don't think so, no.
But it's funny though.
And so, and this is, I actually solicited the comments, and in our comments, there are always rumblings that the only purpose of your channel is to push folks towards your OnlyFans page. Upon research, I haven't seen an OnlyFans. If you do have one, that's you can enlighten us, but I have not seen an OnlyFans page. What I've seen is a non-safe for work Patreon. Yes. What would you say to those who criticize being a men's rights activist and at the same time having that not safe for work content?
For sure. I think that there's a huge overlap in relevance to the point where I believe that both men's rights advocacy and feminism is really just about doing your own thing and not being told that you have to be, act, or say certain things just because of what's in your pants. And so one thing that's important for me is, like, I'm young and I'm beautiful. So, I don't really know what people expect. I think sometimes people think that they're going to sign up for Patreon and just get boobs and butthole. But it's really not like that. And it's quite a complex process. One in which, like, I get to know my Patreons for at least a month before they see any type of that content. So almost the majority of my Patreons on my top tier, I know them by name. I know what they do for a living. I know about their dogs. Like, we talk every day. So it's much more personal. And being young and beautiful and expressive and never being very shy, I don't feel like just because I have a vagina and I talk about men's issues, that means that I have to just cover up. Because at the end of the day, the majority of men can still respect a woman after seeing her naked, because it just is what it is. We're all born naked and the rest is drag, as RuPaul says. So at the end of the day, I mean, being a men's rights advocate does not mean complying to what, certain men may think is proper of you as a woman. Because if I'm going to put those restraints on myself, then why shouldn't men put restraints on themselves for how they should be? Because I, as a woman, say so. You know what I mean? So it just doesn't really match, and I'm going to be myself. And sorry to disappoint. No boobs and butthole. Well, sometimes boobs, but definitely no butthole. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question, but I got to tell you that boobs and butthole is one of the funniest things I've heard today. I would actually get a T-shirt that said that, but but my follow-up question to that then is that do you think it helps? Do you think that it helps you making this content? Does it help your Patreon grow, or do you think that you would get the same traction without making this type of content? So if you just had a Patreon, let's say you talked about, I'm gonna say something silly like scrambling eggs. But by the way, cooking shows on YouTube get hella traction.
Right. Or say just having my Patreon just to talk to them one-on-one.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
What your Patreon does, I mean, they're getting more access to you, and it helps you filter out a lot of people because now they're actually paying for a service or a value and being able to communicate with you. So it does. I don't see anything wrong with it. Yeah. In fact, I think it's actually a good thing that people that like you are actually supporting you with their funds.
Right,
and it's a valid question of his. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, like I think that honestly, it's your content,
right?
And so and I said this before, and people got on my case, and they're saying, well, what do you think about that? And I said, well, listen, she can't sell it if they won't buy it. I mean, the bottom line is that if you think that something is not valid, then the buyer should beware. I mean, I'm from that school. Like I'm old fashioned. Like I cannot get mad at somebody for making me buy something when I took my money.
And a lot of guys like to buy some content that shows a lot of boobies and butt.
Yeah,
and butthole, especially butthole.
And butthole.
I don't know for personal experience.
Let's keep it professional here. Let's keep it professional here, Scotty. Jesus Christ. Hey, I try my best.
$5 to see Scotty's butthole. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, Jesus. And the tip network will be solo.
No, but basically to answer your question, do I feel like my Patreon would have as much success if the not safe for work content wasn't included? I would like to say the same. I would like to. The reason why is because when I was pregnant, because my baby is 8 months old, obviously I wasn't doing not safe for work content because I'm pregnant, and I just didn't feel comfortable. It just didn't feel comfortable, you know, like pregnant women, you know, the world seems to think that they're very beautiful, and like we love that and appreciate that, but like when you're pregnant, you just don't feel beautiful and you don't feel sexy and you feel very vulnerable. So that's not something that I was comfortable doing. So people only subscribed just to talk to me, and I still did very successful. However, you know, I cannot deny that when I advertise not safe for work with, like, you know, maybe a suggestive photo of, or something, people definitely are quicker to subscribe. Now there's a double side to that. Obviously, people love making money. Obviously, I like making money. I get to support my whole family. I get to make sure that there's food on the table. I'm not piss poor anymore, having to like ration food so my kid can eat that week. Like, that's just not the life that I have to live anymore. And I'm so grateful for that. But one thing that I really value my not safe for work content is because there are so many women on the internet who do not safe for work, or do like straight up pornography and OnlyFans. And the thing is that they treat those men like they're just like really nothing but piggy banks. And for me, one thing that's very important to me is letting each and every one of my Patreons know that I acknowledge that they pay my bills. I acknowledge that they put food on the table. I acknowledge that they in themselves help me live. And I show so much appreciation that I don't really feel is given, because, you know, one of you, I don't remember who said it, but one of you said it the best, and you said, like, if, you know, if it wasn't sellable, people wouldn't buy it. And, you know, sex has always been easy to sell if you're a beautiful woman. But the thing is a lot of the women selling it are not giving the mutual respect that a lot of the guys are giving them. Because, yeah, I don't know, there's some perception that the men that subscribe to me are just like weird old men that like live in their grandparents' basement. But I'm telling you, like, I've tons of military members, hardworking single dads, executives, like everybody from all walks of life. So I just like to be able to give the respect that I feel like they deserve. And it's, yeah, like, I'm happy that they subscribe to me, because at least like I appreciate it. I don't just view them as a commodity and then go and call them pigs to my friends. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Do you feel that the not safe for work content will tarnish your legacy and harm the absolutely great work that we heard that you were planning on doing in our last stream? Because that was, I have to tell you that the thing, like, to me, like, any type of shelter for men, because I think in the United States there's 2 men shelter, so any type of shelter, like we were talking about helping single dads, I think was absolutely wonderful. I mean, even the ideal, hearing the ideal is just refreshing. Okay. And I know that it takes a lot to put that in action and put that in work. Do you think that at one point when you're getting funding, because like we're in Silicon Valley where we put together funding all the time. My background, I work for a lot of startups. I've led investor tours a lot. Right. It's probably one of the irritating things about me with Scott is that I'm like super like, we got to be on time. We got to be on time. We got to be ready. We got to be on time.
Very punctual. Yeah.
And like, we got to be prepared. We got to over prepare. And so, but I'm just used to that. And so one of the things is that, do you think that, like, as you're getting investors for this, because I mean, I know, hey, look, you might be a billionaire, but I'm not counting anybody's pockets, but you may need help with that. Do you think that not safe for work content will tarnish that or harm that in any way?
Good question. You know, there are definitely people out there, you know, investors in the future. You know, I was just talking with my agent today about starting to put together a board of directors for a nonprofit organization. You know, there's definitely a possibility that in the future people could not want to work with me because of those things. For me, my greatest obstacle isn't even the not safe for work content. It's the concept of men's rights alone. That alone. I mean, you're the first person that I've given an interview to, because I'm very, very selective, because the people that typically want to work with me either just want to like bash me, or or they're just like kind of like quacks. Like there was one company who watched all my content and they were like, we think you would be perfect for our company. And they send me a package and it's freeze-dried food for the apocalypse. And I'm like, you connected that with men's rights and thought, perfect, apocalypse. Like, but like what does that really say? So at the end of the day, the biggest issue for me isn't really the not safe for work content. It's the men's rights stuff alone. So if somebody can like get past that, then the not safe for work stuff doesn't really matter. And at the end of the day, we've got some like really empowering women in today's society that are, very promiscuous, they're attractive, but they also have law degrees and, XYZ. And, and I just think that you can definitely do both. And so if it's going to hold me back, it's going to hold me back, but I'm just going to keep pushing and I'll figure out a way to do it myself then. I'll sell more butthole to do it myself. So I don't need investors. I'm just kidding.
Hey, fair enough. And I think I think that series of questions, I wrote them to be intentionally tough. And like I said, I had help and I had follow up and 3 layers of the questions. I want to personally thank you for answering all of those. Because and I was like, well, I'm going to word it nicely, I hope.
And is there more than one version of feminism?
Yeah, there's many versions. I think we're in like the 4th or 5th wave of feminism right now. The OG definition of feminism is the attempt to break down the patriarchal systems of hierarchy that oppress both men and women. So in the OG definition, men were very much included. There was no him versus her. And then it changed to, I think the second wave was like workers' rights for women or something like that. And then it changed along the way to now, I think 4th wave is about like including trans women. 3rd wave was very much about like, women can be single moms, they can be homemakers, they can be bachelorettes, and it doesn't matter. So it's definitely changed over time. The version of feminism that we're in right now is what I like to call oppression Olympics. And it's just simply who is more oppressed, how dehumanizing can we be, and how hypocritical can we get? So that's about like my whole version. I think that today's version of feminism, we hear a lot of things like patriarchy being thrown out, a lot of, things about the pay gap. Sorry, ladies, but like if you work longer, harder, more dangerous jobs, you're going to get paid more. So like, sorry, it's just the breakdown isn't what feminists would have you think. And, also we're uncovering the fact that the domestic violence rate has been 50-50 for a very long time. And those statistics are being shoved away because, we have like corporate financial interest, companies like L'Oreal and all of these companies that benefit from us solely believing that women are still incredibly oppressed, because if you attach a feminist message to something, you can sell it. They did it with cigarettes. They did it since the beginning of time, since the 1950s. So today's version of feminism is really just, I think it's kind of like a fallacy. It's outdated. And I think that really we need to go into like an egalitarianism, equal rights realm, because what's happening is just not it, especially when things like patriarchy and like the pay gap can be so easily debunked.
Okay. All right. So here we go here. Do people assume if you are a MRA, you are conservative? And if you don't align with either of the two party systems, sometimes people pigeonhole you. It's a pretty good question.
And shout out to Michael Can.
Thank you for the $5 super chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing that surprises people, especially my partner is like he's like very, I don't know, he's very feminist, and I'm very, who I am. And so our dynamic is pretty great because he challenges me a lot. But one thing that even shocked him was that the majority of my following is like left or like liberal or whatever. So when I polled my YouTube, the majority, which was like an overwhelming response, was liberal, or what's it called? Left. Sorry. Is it liberal there? Here, yeah. Sorry, I get so confused. I get the two confused. But yeah, I do get the assumption quite often that I'm conservative. But other times not, because people like see my tattoos and I don't necessarily look super conservative. So, but yeah, I think sometimes people are like confused as to why I don't, think that like women should stay at home, and not saying that that's like what conservatism is. But I have had people, who have represented themselves as conservatives, just kind of like question me on why I don't believe in like really conservative stuff like that like men should be out working and women should be staying at home. So I don't know where I gave the impression that that's what I was about, but I don't know.
Hey, so the question for you I have to ask is, for your TikTok, have you noticed, exactly what did you say in your videos that got you banned off of TikTok? Because you got big on TikTok first, right? Or was it YouTube first?
It's actually Facebook first.
Facebook. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was Facebook, and then it was YouTube. Or no, then it was TikTok. Multiple things, multiple times. Always calling out specific women. This time, I was in the morning. I was calling out Drew Alfredo, whatever her name is, because she made a video and she's like, men just call me Buffalo bitch when they're mad at me. And then they try to convince people that I'm a terrible person, which is rich coming from them. And I dug up old tweets from when she was in high school, where she was using the F slur for gay people constantly. Like it was like her favorite word on Twitter. And what was interesting is she had a recent video where she was calling out these teenage boys for their homophobia, completely body shaming and just slamming them. And then said in the comments, if you're old enough to be homophobic on the internet, you're old enough to be held accountable. So I had all that tea, and I made a video, and I'm like, I'm about to call out your queens. So give me my fucking crown, because I'm your queen now, bitch. And as I was right in the middle of making the video exposing her, it's posted on my YouTube, by the way. My entire TikTok got banned. I was like, you stupid bitch. But yeah.
Wow.
So that's where we're at. Drew is a terrible
All right. So
human being. That's what I have to say. I hope this doesn't get flagged for bullying.
Since you're a single mother, may I inquire about the child support situation?
Yeah. So this is something that I've been asked quite a lot over the years, because I don't really talk about my kids very much, which I now have 2, but I used to only have 1, which I was a single mother to for 3 years, I think. She's now 5. But yeah, for like 3.5 years, I was a single mom to her. And people used to always be like, how can you champion for father's rights when you're neglecting the most important father, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, there was a trial. We had our day in court. He was tried and convicted for assault with a deadly weapon against me 9 months after I left him for domestic violence. So in my mind, if you're too dangerous to come near me or my kid, you're probably not, like, why would I collect money from you? So especially if I have no intention of allowing him to see our daughter, it just doesn't really make any sense as to why I'd be like, okay, but give me money. It just doesn't make sense. Plus, I've got it. So I don't collect child support in that case. In the case of my second child, I actually pay the child support. I pay quite a lot of it. So I represent the, small portion of mothers who pay child support. I'm definitely happy to do it, not complaining. But yeah,
you can really empathize with men at this point.
Yes. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot, but it is.
I feel bad for you that you have to pay that much child support. So
in the United States, it's about 3% of the women who have to pay child support in the United States. I don't know what the percentage is in Canada. It may be more.
I think it's like 10% of the income.
Yeah. So that's very rare indeed.
Here's the way I see it. Our baby came unexpected on birth control. So I was already making moves to keep myself safe. I had recently experienced a loss of a child, and I didn't even know I was carrying. It was just something that like my body did, but it was very traumatic and not something I wanted to experience again. So, you know, being young, being that like we hadn't been together for like, I think it was just over a year at that point, I said to him, look, you can stay or you can go, and I will not hate you either way. I won't hold you liable. Like, I got this on my own should need be. And he decided to stay, which I totally appreciated him for. So we decided to like, you know, stop being in a relationship and just focus on co-parenting because we're young and we needed it to work. And so the way I see it is like, he's young, he's a year younger than me, 24. I completely changed his life with a kid because, you know, he decided to stay, sure, but I was the one that said, hey, this kid's happening. So I feel like the very least I can do is like set him up for success financially, you know what I mean? Especially if I have a good income, I would never be like, here's a child, go get a job. Like I just wouldn't do that. It's not feasible to me. So that's where I'm at. Happy to do it.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So,
well, taking care of people is always a good thing, and being able to be fulfilled in that way, and being able to reappraise your situation and finding that you are helping your family. So it's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, no, it would be hard for me. You call me old fashioned, and I'm not.
You are old fashioned, man.
Shut up. It would be hard. And look, I'm not going to disagree with your whatever you folks do. Like I'm very libertarian in my thinking about people's personal lives. Like I'm not going to, like that's why I'm hesitant to even like ask a question about your kid. I'm hesitant because if you didn't want to talk about it and I pigeonholed you, that's bullshit, and I don't want to do that to anybody. I'm
upfront about if I don't want to answer something, yeah. So you can.
So I appreciate that. It would be very hard for me to stay home and collect money from my wife.
Yeah,
it would be very hard. It would be very hard for me. I mean, and look, if I lose my job or something's going on and things are tough, I know for a fact that I was 100% down to get to work and help us out. But that's going to be a very temporary situation. I'm going to have to make something happen. That's just the way I am. It'll be hard for me. But folks who can do it, I don't look down upon them. I think that just like everything, the world changes, and I'm not going to act like the world must be my way, because doing that they even make more old jokes about you.
Right.
We have another super chat.
Another super chat from T-Man for $5.
What does T-Man say? T-Man says, "What is your opinion on the potential of women being added to the military draft?"
I seen something about this today. I seen a woman who was taking a men's rights approach, being like, I support women in the draft. Go fuck yourself. I think that equality means nobody should have to go die at war. So, and I know that a lot of people would agree with me, and I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't. But I know that, at least for my community in the Roma Army, we are not of the perspective that equality means that just because men were forced to go and die at war just because they have a penis, well, that means that you have to now. I think what should happen is that nobody should have to. And if this is the unfortunate thing that has to happen for, people to understand that the draft is like a sick and fucked up thing all over the world, not just places like here, then I think that'll just be a better place. Because at the end of the day, there are tons of people who want to serve the military, who want to serve their country. I being one of them, I hope to go into the military, the Canadian military in 10 years. You don't have to force people to do it. And I just feel like, I see a lot of men online and women being like, well, men had to do it. So, equality means, it's kind of like the equal rights, equal fights type thing. I've never believed in that. To me, equal rights means, that no matter your sex, your gender, your whatever, you will be held accountable or taken seriously no matter what. So
okay,
that's my answer.
I think that's a very full-throated answer. I will say this, though. Sometimes it gets very confusing. It's very confusing to me if I hear somebody say, hey, I can do everything you can do. And so I'm like, cool. And I can, and like I have a lot of women martial artists. I can fight and do jiu-jitsu and kickbox as hard as you can. All right, cool. And then it's like, and then when we get to this point, it seems like a sticking point. I'll say this. I will die by old-fashioned sword. So I don't want anybody in war. I definitely, but if I had to choose sending my son or my daughter to war, which this is something that my grandfather looked at my father and my uncles and said, "Hey, you guys, it's a war going on. There's a draft. It's Vietnam." I know that my grandfather would have picked all of his sons over his daughters. I know he would have.
Right.
I know he would. And it's not even a thing. It's not even a thing like he's being like sexist or women can't do it. He's like at the very least, I need y'all to, make some more babies.
It comes down to like how men and women are valued differently in society, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a multifaceted question, and
I would want a female fighting beside me either way.
Well, I think, in his defense, I'm not sure, actually, I don't know what you're thinking about him, but if I were to fight alongside a female and if I saw her getting hurt, I would most likely try to protect her.
It would be a distraction, because your instinct. Yeah. I'd be like, go fuck yourself.
It's a very protective instinct that's biologically hardwired in men.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway.
So the next question I have is multifaceted, and it's a recent event. It's an event that I did what we call a tip talk on.
Mm-hmm.
And I got
not recently. It was a long time ago.
Well, I did a tip, but
it came out, when it happened.
When it first happened, I did a tip talk.
Yes.
But the whole tip talk, I first got I think we had like 200 subs or something when I did it.
Yeah.
And it came back and gained a lot of traction. A lot of people were disagreeing with me about this and about my stance on it. So
when my controversy happened, or when the Kyle Rittenhouse happened?
When the Kyle Rittenhouse happened. And then when your controversy happened, I just kind of like sat back and I said, you know what?
I've been there, done that.
I was like, a lot of times being kind of seeing a lot of things in life, like my backgrounds, I lived in a few different countries. I've worked a lot of different places, a lot of different people. I've worked with people who are very hot-blooded. I work with people who are very like cool and collective. I think I would say that from what I see of you, and I don't know you well personally, I say that you probably hot-blooded and say what you feel, and it is what it is. Yeah. And so I always just said about what you said to me. I said, you know what? I don't agree with it, but I got to respect your opinion.
Right.
And that's kind of how I approached it. I was like, I respect what she's doing, and I hope it's like I know it's like people are like, oh, you're playing the middle ground on it, and I'm talking about your reaction and everything. So I want to go through some of these questions here. This is American-centric question, so I know your subs in Canada will be like, well, why do you expect her to know about this? But one of the things is that like you have a large amount of your following from the United States, and one thing that everybody I know who follows you are pro Second Amendment conservatives.
Yeah.
Everyone I know who follows you is pro Second Amendment conservatives, which I think conservative means a lot different here in the United States than it does in Canada. I would say that. I would say it means totally different.
Yeah, to some, yeah. Well, yeah, they're different places, different policies, different different things to care about, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
And which is natural, by the way. Which is natural.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna go through this. And if it's something that like you're not familiar with, that's fine. And I just want to have a discussion about it. And this is the last thing I have prepared, so it's pretty meaty, okay?
Sure.
So the thing is, what is your understanding of the Second Amendment constitutional, United States Constitution, Second Amendment?
The right to bear arms.
Yeah. What's your understanding of that?
Okay. First question. Okay. My understanding of the Second Amendment is actually pretty vast. I have a pretty good understanding of the history. I have a pretty good understanding of the different court cases, that shaped where the Second Amendment is today. One thing that I've always found very fascinating about it is how, unlike the other 9 amendments, it is the only one that is so controversial and has faced so much controversy, even though for the majority of its life, like the first 200 years, it was widely untouched and considered like a very boring topic. But, now as time has changed, as we've seen, a lot of gun violence, the Columbine shooting, I know that was a big one that kind of shaped the way the Second Amendment went. I have a very good understanding of it, and with its relationship with the National Rifle, what's it called? The
NRA.
NRA, thank you. Yeah, and its relationship with that. So, I think I got myself into trouble with the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff by, first of all, not making my position clear, and also not taking into account and respecting the fact that Americans take their gun laws very seriously, which is something that I will never understand completely because I am Canadian and we have very different gun laws. But, in the relation to that and Kyle Rittenhouse, I feel like a lot of my anger came from maybe my understanding of the origins of the Second Amendment, how it's been interpreted, and the controversy around it.
So what were you going to say?
So now the next question is, Kyle Rittenhouse was a big moment that cost you, I believe, 18,000 subs.
Mm-hmm.
Sure did.
And what do you say to your fans that are pro Second Amendment and actually feel Rittenhouse, although it was foolish for being there that night, had the absolute and complete right to defend himself?
Agreed. And I think that's where, when I talk position clear, definitely, I along with probably, everybody else who's familiar with him saw the video at trial where one of the guys, I believe he shot, I don't know if he killed him, or I think it might have been the guy who survived, pointed to go, at the end of the day, you certainly do have a right to defend yourself 100%. I mean, we could go into the push and pulls, or the logistics or the history of the Second Amendment all day long, but at the end of the day, as it stood in America at that time, he was all in his right to defend himself. Whether or not I believe that he should have been there to begin with is not relevant to the issue at hand, which was whether or not he had a right to defend himself. What confuses me as a Canadian is that here in Canada, we have a manslaughter charge, which is, when you kill somebody accidentally, was confusing. And I also, I've seen a lot of people was a pedophile, and a lot of people were, a pesto file. I don't know. Anyways, screwed that one. And a lot of people, especially when I was going through my heat for it, were saying things to me like, does that mean that you must love pestos and you defend them? And I just felt like that was such a gross misrepresentation, because can we maybe all agree that pesto dying, was that God's work? Yeah, it was. But I'm not comfortable with sitting and pretending like Kyle knew previously that he was a pesto, or that he left his house to go get the pesto at like this big pesto invention. That's not really what was happening. And so that's where I struggle with it. I struggle with the lawyer in the trial, not Kyle's, the other guy that was of the state. I think he did a fucking terrible job, especially when he disrespected the judge and went right against his ruling to try to prove what I can't remember the word right now, premeditation. When Kyle had been quoted to say that he wished something, the judge said that wasn't viable to prove premeditation, which I agree, saying somebody wishes that they had a rifle to do something at a certain time doesn't prove premeditation. I get it. I just feel like he should have gotten something, and I don't feel like he should have been be made out to have been as much of a hero as he was. Although I do understand for people who are pro Second Amendment, I do understand why he would have been somebody that they would have championed for, because, like I said, the Second Amendment is very controversial, and you either love it or you hate it. So
there's definitely a big discord amongst liberals and conservatives on this issue. So definitely, and so they're always going to do their talking points with this issue.
I would like to, if I could just be easy for a moment, talk about my issues with the Second Amendment and why I'm a supporter of it.
Okay.
So my grandfather in I believe he started purchasing the land in 1950, but didn't get the deal actually done until the middle 60s, which was we purchased about 125 acres, a large spot of land in East Texas. Now, I'm always hesitant to say that being black or this and that, but being black in East Texas during the height of segregation or the end of segregation and starting going to the civil rights movement was not very safe. Being affluent and having land and taking care of your family was not very safe.
Yeah.
But what my grandfather would do during the off season when we weren't farming is that he would go and he would work as a porter. He would work in LA. He'd work different places to make sure that there was always money. He'd work away. The only people who were left were the young kids and the women at the house. When my grandfather was gone and my uncles, which if I could tell you that there's 350 people directly related to me living right now in this town. So we have a huge family. Nobody had televisions back in the day. They just had each other. And so
they had to talk to each other.
Yeah, they did a lot of talking. And so what happened was when these folks came by, there was the Klan, and the Klan would come on our property and kill our cattle and ruin our business and burn us out. And it was our ability to have weapons that stopped them. And as my father got back from Vietnam, the weapons upgraded when my father and my uncles got back from Vietnam, and it stopped them more impressively to the fact that we were left alone. So I'm not trying to say that Kyle Rittenhouse was in the right to be there. Mm-hmm. But I have to separate him. I think he was actually silly to go there. And that's why I get the most heat from everybody. Why would you say that this person is silly?
Because he's defending other people's property. I mean, I got to research it a little bit more because I see a comment over here that says part of his family or whatever, but it's just really strange that you go across states.
Well, it doesn't even make a difference. I think that he was silly. I think that if he was going to be there, just the way he got separated from folks, their safety in numbers, I don't think he wanted to do that, but I think that he was silly. I've seen people say he was highly trained. I'm going to tell you from somebody who literally
he was 17.
Knows a thing or two that he was a kid, he wasn't highly trained. But with all of that being said, someone attacked him and he defended himself. And the laws in the state that he was in provided for him not to go to jail. Now, if he was in California, he would have actually went to jail for 10 years. If he was in California when that happened. But he was in I almost want to say Wisconsin. I forget where he was. And so he was in a different state. He was in a different state. So that's just my idea is that I'm pro Second Amendment because I have a family history of it. I believe that people have the inherent right to defend themselves. I would want, about 10 years ago, I think I could take anybody hand to hand. As I get older, I got a wife, and somebody comes to the house, and I may grab a tool to help me defend her and my family and my property. But that's just it. I believe that the Second Amendment is, when done right, 100% honorable and 100% necessary. Now, do people abuse it? Yes. And those people, there's laws and they should go to jail. But besides that, I'm 100% for it. I do say that I remember seeing, and I want to say something that I seen you released a video saying like, hey, I don't understand these laws so much, or I'm a Canadian, this and that. And I don't think it was an apology, but an explanation. I think that and when I seen that, I said, fair enough. I understand more of where you're coming from. And that was that. That's what I had about.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please, ma'am. It's your floor now. I'll be quiet.
I support. I just want to say I support the Second Amendment, as a Canadian, as an Albertan, I mean, this is like the Texas of Canada. So like I mean, everybody and their dog has a rifle. You know what I mean? So we have guns here. We don't have concealed carry. I'm pretty sure we can really only defend ourselves on our land, on our property, in our home. I'm for the Second Amendment when it comes to that regard. Where it gets messy is that, you know, and I don't remember the exact definition or the exact phrasing of the Second Amendment, but it was something along the lines of like, you know, the Second Amendment protects what was it? Militia, like something needed militia. Hold on a second. I gotta pull it up so that I can.
Yeah, let me look it
So I
up
can
real
really
quick.
get it because
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Well, Second Amendment says the right to bear arms will not be infringed.
Yeah, a
That's it.
well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So, you know, the thing about the Second Amendment is that it never, and for the first like 200 years was not interpreted as having the individual right to hold an arm. It was, you know, now it's like that's outdated. You know, a regulated militia. I'm pretty sure that's just like the military or like the National Guard. You know what I mean? So like the thing about the Second Amendment is that, you know, it has been changed. It has changed. You know, I think it was like 1932 or somewhere around there where those bank robbers took like a sawed-off shotgun or took something and were claimed to be militia, and they're like, no. So it changed again. You know, the Columbine shooting also brought it into controversy again. I believe that people have the right to defend themselves, should always have the right to defend their property, their home. I even think that if you know, have the right checks, you know, good mental health, whatever, you should be able to carry, you know, open carry. I would just like to see it. As a Canadian, I can't lie, it makes me very nervous to go tour the US knowing that like anybody around me can have a fucking gun in their pants and I don't. Like it makes me uneasy. But I think that people do have the right to defend themselves. They should defend themselves. I just think that we need some clearer guidelines on what that looks like. And, you know, you mentioned that conservatives and liberals, they have two very different sides when it comes to this. Or left and right, I guess. And, you know, I've noticed for people who want more gun laws, you know, nothing is infringing on the Second Amendment. And for people who don't want any gun laws, everything is infringing on the Second Amendment. You know what I mean? So I just think that a middle ground needs to happen where there's a clearer understanding, because I believe in the importance of upholding and understanding the law for sure.
And
Well,
so
I'm sorry, go on.
I'm going to give a definition of militia from the Oxford Dictionary, and I wish I could screen share it, but it's going to slow us down. But here is the official definition. Militia, a military force that is raised from the civil population to supplement a regular army in an emergency. Also, a military force that engages in rebel or terrorist activities in opposition to a regular army. And the last one, all able-bodied civilians eligible by law for military service.
Yeah. So here's the thing that's really interesting to me is that I live in a heavily regulated state for gun laws,
Right.
with a lot of gun violence.
Yeah.
Chicago is heavily regulated city with a lot of gun violence.
Right.
Washington, D.C. is a heavy regulated city with a lot of gun violence.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you something about Huntsville, Texas, and Waverly, Texas, where my family's from.
What happens there?
Ain't no regulation. Very little gun violence per capita. And so it really comes down to, in my opinion, the education and the respect that is given and ingrained in it. And I'm sorry, it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. Like, I grew up with, there was 50 rifles in my grandfather's room lined up. And if I touch one, somebody spark fire from me. You know, I mean, that's just the way it was. I mean, I could not touch it until I learned. It was just one of the understanding. So I think that's the biggest thing. With me, I think the biggest fault that the United States has with gun laws is that you should have to have a real course on how to use it and how to take care of it and that with it. That's just my personal thought. But that's all I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
We are an hour into it. Thank you for answering the questions full-throated. I think that these questions were tough. People are going to say I wasn't tough enough. That's okay. I don't care. I really don't care. I mean, I'm very satisfied.
This is for self-made. Say wet, Scott. There we go.
That's our number one mod, self-made.
You gotta go real close to the mic. Do it real sensually and slowly. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm leaving my own damn house if this happens. but here's the deal. I want to thank you for really. I want to thank you for really just going on and answering the questions. Look, I know people they may not agree with the method. My method is to ask questions and let you talk and let people draw their own conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And draw their own conclusions. And there is a question here from Richard Bear.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it's not super or anything.
Yeah.
And it's a very deep question, and I prefer that. So it's up to you. What do you think? And it's actually
I got about 2 minutes, so if I can answer it in 2 minutes, I'll do it.
All right, no, it's 2 minutes. It should have came earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
It should have. It was just because we already talked about how you feel about Kyle Rittenhouse. We talked about that.
Here, we'll give a bonus on this one.
Yeah.
So Richard Byer asked, if you really want to determine if she is a chameleon or not, just ask how she feels about Kyle Rittenhouse or how she feels about incels.
So we talked
about Kyle Rittenhouse already. Yeah. But then what do you feel about incels? And I guess we would have to define what an incel is.
Involuntarily celibate. There we go.
Yeah, self-named. So incels are very quickly, they're a group of men who have named themselves incels. It's short for involuntarily celibate, which I think is absolutely insane. Most of us just say that we're not really boning anybody right now. Just saying.
Abstinence in the form of birth control.
Yeah. I feel like, again, as a Canadian, a lot of people may not know this, but here in Canada, there have been multiple literal terrorist attacks from local people, incels. They will go to salons, literally stabbing pretty women. I think they're the ones who really coined the term Chad. They really have some scary beliefs, such as, redistribution of sex, meaning that because women we just have so much commodity of sex that we should just be obligated to give it to lonely men. Just really, really scary stuff like that. And I think that to the less scary incels, because it's definitely a spectrum, I would I would encourage them to find community, find self-worth, and understand that the world is not all about finding a woman and getting pussy. It's just a huge misconception. And the men who get pussy, so to speak, really don't care that much about it. They just do it when they do it. You know what I mean? They just don't. It's not everything it was drummed up to be. You're probably going to get STDs, and most women starfish anyways. So you're not missing much.
Starfish?
Wow. Okay. And so just to correct, that was not self-made who asked the question. Mm-hmm. That was Richard Byer. Okay, Chloe, I know that we only have you for a limited time. You actually stayed over 9 minutes. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Self-made. I said Richard Byer's name. Go actually accidentally drop it because he saw your name.
Richard Byer. So thank you very much for spending this time with us. Thank you for coming back. It's absolutely excellent. You answered the questions. You even answered that last question, which it is what it is. You said how you feel, and like I said, the people who watch this can now
take it or leave it. Make sure you let us know in the comments, is Roma Army a chameleon? I don't care. Little do you guys know, I'm a fucking platypus. Joke's on you.
A platypus. All right. So thank you very much. As always, everybody, thanks for rocking with us. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check our videos out. We have over 200 pieces of content. And as always, ask yourself one burning question. Now, I know we threw you off last time, Roma.
Yeah.
But we say this as our tagline. And it's, can you handle the tip?
Yeah, we're going all in.
Boom. Booty in your face. We are out. Thank you so much.
This splash.